The governor has introduced legislation, has had introduced legislation in the House that would make it a crime, a misdemeanor, to change the little CRTC answer scores, whether administrators or teachers. Has there been any discussion in the Republican caucus on that? How do you feel about it?
We have had no discussion, so I can't speak for our caucus members of the Republicans, the senators. I'm very hesitant to create any more crimes. So I think we need to solve this problem. This cheating scandal is damaging to the confidence of everyone in Georgia on how our education system is performing, but most importantly, it hurts students. But to criminalize it, I think, is something we need to be very careful about doing. Haven't read the legislation, but at this point I'd be very cautious about moving down that road.
Can you just go over, since it's coming up this week perhaps, this being able to opt out of this healthcare, if federal healthcare passes in some form?
Well, I think there's now up to 35 states that have introduced this legislation. The only one I know where it's been successful, I believe, is Arizona. And but that's only because it's just been introduced in all the other states. I think it's more designed from a constitutional standpoint to protect your state from having any future program like that. I believe I heard that there were 19 states over the last year or so that had, in some way, shape, or form, had legislation introduced mandating purchasing certain coverage, similar to what goes on in Massachusetts. And this would protect the citizens of Georgia from not having that happen in our state, even from a state level. I think it would set up a constitutional battle with what may or may not happen at the federal level with the plans that had been talked about. I don't know where they are in that process of forcing people to purchase insurance or have the IRS enforce it through the tax code. So it would set up that constitutional battle. But again, I think the first and foremost part of that process is protecting Georgians from any future Georgia legislation that may seek to do the same thing.
Where are we on ethics?
I try to be as ethical as possible.
We've heard a lot about it in the beginning, but what's the latest?
Yeah, I don't know what the latest is. I know that's an effort that really, in our discussions with the House at the leadership level, that was something that they were. I know the speaker talked about. That was something they were looking at. And I suppose we're waiting on that to occur in the House, and then we'll take a look at it. It's not something that no law should be made reactionary. We should never pass a bill because something happened in the news that says we need to do this immediately. You should always take a step back and make sure you're doing the right thing. And I think particularly in ethics, where you can create laws that simply become gotcha vehicles for people, you need to be very careful that you're not doing that. So I know that talking to my colleagues, everyone wants to. If there's problems, we need to fix them. We don't. Again, as I said, I think in an earlier meeting right here, is that this doesn't need to be a Republican ethics bill or a Democrat ethics bill. It really needs to be a bipartisan effort that everybody agrees on. So, maybe the ultimate answer is having somebody on the outside who's an expert in this look at it and tell us what are the best rules. And we certainly have people that have those capabilities. And there's that group that rates all the states on their ethics laws, and we're ranked very highly, and we moved up considerably when we passed ethics reform back in, I believe, 2005. What we may want to do is revisit the criteria that they have, that this independent group has established for the best ethics laws, and if there's something we're missing, we should probably look at it.
Has there been any talk about giving the State Ethics Commission a guaranteed or independent revenue stream to keep doing what it's doing? You've seen the cuts that they've had.
Well, now some of the cuts they've had, and again, I'm not an expert on every bill that passes this place, but I do recall a few years ago when they moved their offices, they had asked for a significant increase to move their offices. And then the next year, the funding level was maintained even though they had already completed the move. And I know there was some concern on the part of the legislators that when we're looking for ways to reduce spending, that perhaps they don't need this much money because they've already physically moved their facilities. And of course they didn't like that, because once funding is established, you never like to go the other way. So I think that was the concern of some legislators, that maybe they were being funded too much only because the reason for the initial bump up in funding was to move offices. You know, if they can make a credible case that we're not funding them enough for them to do their job, we certainly want to hear that. All right, anything else?
No, sorry I'm late.
No, don't worry.
Well, just quickly.
It's kinda laid back.
You probably mentioned this while I was getting here, but property tax, is that coming back up this week in finance, or is that?
Yeah, we've been working since the last meeting to iron out all the questions that were raised by members of the committee, and I think we've addressed all of them and even found some more technical changes we needed to make, and we should be ready to go with that bill on Wednesday. I don't know of any opposition. This has been perhaps the most inclusive effort I've had dealing with a comprehensive bill of this nature. I mean, we've taken every suggestion from everybody. This weekend I had 10 suggestions from people just randomly emailing me saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. Some of them we'd actually already done, and some of them we're considering, so